This is actually the clay bust that he created. I see part of an ear is missing. But this would be what was molded. Ed, if you'll hand me one of the arms down there so I can show them what the phone looks like.
This is largely foam with a thin layer of clay over the surface, where I improved and finished out the detail of the piece as I go along. Same thing with the rest of the body and the head as well. The enlargement is pretty accurate, but given the size of this piece, I could get more accurate modeling the clay afterwards. Size 18 shoes here.
Very cool.
So once the figure is finished in clay and then cut apart, everything goes into our rubber mold room. And I'm hoping we can squeeze everybody in there, but we're going to go through this door right here. This is where the rubber molds are made. Once the sculpture is cut apart, you can see the start of a small mold right over here. Rubber is painted onto the surface of the clay. It starts with a thin rubber coating, a couple of thin layers, and then gradually the rubber gets thicker and thicker. About halfway through that process, they put these metal shims in place, and this divides the sculpture into two halves. So you have, a front and a back. Sometimes you might have 3 or more pieces that the sculpture is divided into. This is one that we're currently molding right now. This is Henrietta Lack. I'm assuming you guys are familiar with her. This is by Virginia artist Larry Bechtel. And, okay, where's this going? Is it, I think it, Bobby, do you remember where Larry's piece is going? It's in Virginia somewhere. I want to say
Roanoke?
I might be Roanoke. I know there's been a lot of publicity about this piece, so we have enough. I usually have about 60 jobs going on at one time, so I have trouble always remembering when things go. But this has been molded. So these are some of the rubber molds. I'm going to pull this out. You can see how thin the rubber is. Very flexible. So if you tried to pour wax in this, it would just be all warped and messed up. So we use a plaster mother mold to make sure that the rubber stays nice and firm. And there are keys all along the edges where the rubber goes into the plaster to hold it in place. Bobby's kind of putting everything back in now on this piece so that wax can be added. On the larger pieces like this, wax is first painted into the surface of the rubber. And then poured in. Now, I don't know, it's tight. All right, so in this area, all of our wax work is finished. So once the wax is in the rubber mold, we usually will put what's called the screw system on the backside. Adam, if you'll show that to everybody. So this is an Indian that's being done. And so all this on the back is a screw system. And on this end, a pouring cup will be added.
What is this room made of? It looks like it's waxed.
Okay, if you look at these arms up here,
Oh, so that's what melts.
can everybody see the red arms? So at the bottom is the green wax is the screw system. This big cup here is called a pouring cup. Eventually, a mold will be made around and inside of this wax. Then all of this wax will be melted out of that mold, and then the bronze is going to go in through the empty space left here and flow down through the screw system and into the sculpture. This is a 3D printed wax. It's a little different than what we normally do. So what was done with that, we actually scanned 2 different people's arms, put that information in the computer, turned it into a 3D model, and then sent that off to a company that does 3D wax printing. So they made the waxes for us, and we were able to skip the molding part. That works for some things, and then other things it's not as good for. But this doesn't usually have as much detail And so for that reason, we wanted to go with the traditional mold making for this particular piece. All the waxes usually come with different flaws in them, little pits or holes or bubbles and seam lines. All that has to be cleaned up and finished out. Nicole usually does that work. She usually sits right here. She's out today, but this is her husband, and he is busy working on the sprue system. So Adam is our supervisor in this area and does a great job for us. Okay, and so once the waxes are finished, the sprue system is complete, then everything goes next door into the ceramic shell room. Then we make another mold, again, around the wax and inside the wax. And so we're gonna, if you'll follow me through, we'll try and head over that way. Okay, and so in this room, we create what's called a ceramic shell mold. So the wax is dipped in one of these two slurries. I'm gonna see if I can lift this up together. It's heavy. What you can see inside is a liquid ceramic material, and the waxes are dipped in the liquid ceramic and then brought over to one of these tables, and sand is sprinkled on the wet slurry. We start with a fine ceramic mix and then a fine sand, and then this is a thicker slurry with a thicker sand. Layers of slurry and sand are built up on the surface of the wax, both inside and outside, until it gets about a 1/4 inch thick. It usually takes about 5 or 6 layers of ceramic and sand to build up the ceramic shell. And then once the shell is dry, it goes outside to a kiln, and it's turned so that the pouring cup, that big cup, is facing down, and the mold is heated up, and all the wax melts out or burns out of that mold. This is a piece over here that has been burned out, and so all inside here was originally wax. Now it's a hollow space. And so when that goes out to the foundry, they're going to be pouring bronze down through the pouring cup. It will go through the sprue system and down into the sculpture. So I don't know what that is. I think they still have some outside that they're not right now. Okay, so in this area, this is where we pour our bronze. The ceramic shell molds will go in the kiln over here, and that's where the wax is melted out. Right now we're not, we're using it just to warm up the mold, so it's too hot to open right now. The furnace, I can't show you that yet either. It's full of the molten bronze, and the bronze melts at about 1900 degrees. So you'll get to see that in a little bit when they get ready to pour. You'll see how everything works.
That's cool.
So,
1900
1900 degrees, it's hot.
Fahrenheit or Celsius?
Fahrenheit. So once the mold is poured and the bronze starts to cool, the bronze shrinks, and it causes that ceramic mold to start cracking. So let me see if I can find a piece for you. These are some that have been poured. This would be a piece of ceramic shell. You can pass that around. And that is strong enough to withstand molten bronze being poured down inside of it. screw system is cut off, and the metal is sandblasted clean, inside and out. And then all the different pieces of the sculpture go down to the metal shop to be welded back together. This is actually parts of TD right here that are being worked on.
I think the hands are so cool.
Yeah.
Such detail in the hands.
It's exaggerated a little bit because of the general distance. I didn't see any way people could walk up onto that traffic circle.
Right.
So it's a little more accented, especially on the knuckles, so they don't look too smooth. So this is a lot heavier than the clay piece.
Yeah. I love it.
So the legs are being assembled, and it's several stages to finish out the welds. They're welded together, ground to hit the top level, and then special tooling made up to cut the grooves from the clay tools to continue through the weld lines. That's key to making them disappear, and not just shape, but texture as well. And you don't see much here because this is a matte finish on the metal, but before they start doing the texturing, they'll take a powered wire brush and buff all of this area up so it shines, and then they'll take a Sharpie, and where they see the clay rake tool lines go through, they'll draw in everywhere that should be depressed, and then use carbide cutters and bit by bit cut all those black lines out that they draw in so that everything is seamless in the appearance of everything. But even from quite a distance, that would show up as a blank spot. We try our best to make sure you can't see them. I'm always looking at other boundaries castings when I see them somewhere to see how did they do these things.
When you bring it up, do you bring it up as one whole piece, or do you bring it up in pieces like that?
You mean the assembly of it?
Assembly, yeah.
Well, we'll assemble the legs and the hip area first, and then because it's in a public place, we like to make sure everything's good and strong. You never know. Public can be mean. So we put a stainless steel pipe armature inside the legs with a crossbar at the hips, and because he's got his arm out, it'll go up through his shoulder and down through his arm so that he'll withstand anything. We don't want to be in some embarrassing news story.
This is our piece being assembled. You can see the base and the bottom of the figure. It's a robed figure, a religious figure. And so we start at the bottom and work our way up. A lot of times when we start to put pieces together, they may not match up. You may have two pieces that are supposed to match like this, but instead they're skewed like this. And so you'll see a lot of hydraulic jacks, a pile of them over there, that are used in car repairs, and we use those to help push and pull the bronze either apart or together so that we can get everything lined up perfectly and then weld it. Bronze, the alloy that we use is very malleable. In other words, you can bend it, move it, whereas other kinds of metal are brittle, and if you tried to do that, they would break. And so that's another reason we like to use the silicon bronze, because it's very easy to work with. So this area out here is our patina area. This is a piece that came in for repairs. The patina that was on it developed some white spots that were coming up from, I guess, the metal actually.
Yeah.
And then the artist decided that they wanted it fixed, whatever it took. So we ended up having to take cut all the lacquer and patina off, and Neil's now polishing the surface again to get it ready to re-patina. He's not real happy with me, but he didn't want to do this. But anyway, so anything you want to add?
This one just, it's hard because you got to get it all slick. So after burning it off and you have to clean it off, you got to sand it all back up. And each stage you got to polish it back up. The bottoms of these, of their dresses were mirror finished. I got to re-buff and polish up those. But now usually every time that as you strip it, you'll open up pits, spongy spots, little discrepancies. You'll find little surprises everywhere. Usually as you fix them, you just keep chasing your tail for a while until you finally get it all smoothed out. So then you can restart the patina process. But you're also fighting like the humidity outside because it wants to naturally oxidize. So you're constantly trying to keep it all slick, try to sand and lean your lines. So you're trying to hurry up and get it on there with also not trying to rush to get a nice patina on it. So it's kind of a balancing act.
Neil's very good at balancing.
Where was it originally exhibited?
It was in a gallery in Charleston.
Okay.
We went down and picked it up and brought it back up here. It was cast out in California and patinaed out there, but the artist is a Virginia artist, and I'm kind of keeping my fingers crossed once he sees the work that we do that maybe he'll consider working with us instead of going all the way out to California. It's a gamble, you know, because this was a lot of work and a lot of trouble, but we're hoping we might get some work out of it. But Neil, we use different chemicals and the blow torches, which we use propane for the torch. He'll heat up the surface of the metal and then spray chemicals, and different chemicals give different colors. He can do just about any color that you can think of. So he's very good at trying. He's one of our he is our longest employee. How long have you been with us now?
Close to 15 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. So it's like family. So anyway, this would be the last part of the process. Once the patina is added, a clear coat lacquer finish is applied, and then several layers of wax are applied on top of the lacquer. And then it's good to go outside for about a year. About every year, you need to reapply the lacquer, so that, I mean not the lacquer, the wax, so that the finish stays the same. And I think in our contract that something has been made mention of coming up and doing the work on that. So anyway, that's something that we'll be trying to do every year to make sure it looks good and stays that way.